Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. On the 16th of January there was a cross which didn't count to any classification, the Zilvermeercross in Mol. With me here to talk about it is Issam.
Hey everybody.
So the Zilvermeercross in Mol, it's one of the few pure sand crosses, maybe together with Kokzijde, although the situations were a bit strange here, some changing weather conditions. Issam, tell us about it in the men's race.
Yeah, like you said already, it's a non-classified race, at least no part of a classification. There were a few guys that were already in Spain, some didn't join the race. But we had Van Aert and we had Sweeck and we had some other good riders that were joining, so it was we were definitely looking forward to have a good race, and then a good race it was. Zilvermeer known for the sand. Van der Haar had a very good start at the beginning of the race, followed by the rest actually. But it was in the second round where Sweeck really tried to open a gap, and he got at the end of the round he got Van Aert and Daan Soete actually with him. Van Aert actually took initiative for there. Sweeck was literally the only one that was really able to follow Van Aert. Soete couldn't follow the wheels, and actually, he fall down the pack pretty badly after that, in my opinion. So Van Aert was really looking strong. Sweeck was giving some resistance, and for the third place it was actually Van der Haar, Van der Poel who were really fighting for that spot. Jens Adams was close by but was not really able to challenge these two. We were looking for a battle between Van Aert and Sweeck, but in the end it was Van Aert that just had, was the strongest of the two, despite the fact that Sweeck had some better passages through the sand. It was Van Aert though that put Sweeck under pressure in the same sand, and Sweeck had no answer, and that was it. He bridged the gap of 20 seconds in no time, and Sweeck was gone behind Van Aert. Van Aert was just on his own and ready to win that race. For third place though, it was a really good battle between Van der Haar and Van der Poel. David van der Poel was really strong in the sand, but Van der Haar was stronger overall, and he showed that and got away from Van der Poel and managed to get the third place. It was first for Van Aert, second for Laurens Sweeck, and third for Lars van der Haar.
Well, that's a winner for Van Aert. We can't say it's a surprise. We can't say that at all because, he was the top favorite. He wins here. I don't think Sweeck, of course, he made that mistake, but if you see how fast Van Aert opened that gap, there's nothing anybody could have done against this Wout van Aert.
Yeah, true. We know a little bit about Van Aert, that his sand passages are not always brilliant, but today he didn't make many mistakes there, and we know overall that he is the strongest by far of the group that was today available to race. It's no surprise that he won this race, and especially if you see after his kind of attack, it was more a mistake from Sweeck, but Van Aert saw the mistake, and when he went, it was really a big difference in, I think, half a lap. It was already 17-20 seconds. So really strong performance from Van Aert, and there is nothing you can do about this.
And in terms of maximizing their performance, I think the same goes for the guys who fought it out for third and fourth, David van der Poel and Lars van der Haar. They were pretty back and forward going there, and eventually it was Lars van der Haar who beat David van der Poel. But nevertheless, I think David van der Poel rode his best race of the season so far.
I think so too. I think his race in Troyes was also a pretty strong race. That was his first win as well of this season, if I'm not wrong. He showed again in Mol, where he's never been bad in Mol. We can remember, of course, that edition that he was behind his brother, and we were thinking that that Mathieu is going to get the win to David, but in the end he had a little bit difficulties in the last lap, and even Meusen was able to overtake him. But we know that David is really strong in Mol. He had a lot of difficulties in the beginning of the cyclocross season with his back, with the breathing as well. They did some tests, but they came out positive, so he just had to fight on through the season. And it's very, very good to see that he managed to get over that, and now is in fourth place.
Well, this parcours has a lot of sand. The World Championships in Oostende also has quite some sand. I think the parcourses are relatively similar. This is maybe the one that comes the closest. So do you think that David van der Poel could be targeting a top 10 if he keeps this form up until the World Championships?
The way he was going through the sand was actually pretty good. I think his overall form and shape lacked a little bit compared to Van der Haar, for example. But if you look at the guys behind him, it was definitely better. And this David van der Poel can definitely be a guy that even can help his brother in the first few laps, and also target the top 10.
Let's take a look at the entire top 10 then. Behind the top 4 of Van Aert, Sweeck, Van der Haar and Van der Poel, who we just discussed, we found Jens Adams. In front of Soete, Dieter Sweeck, Corné van Kessel, Tom Meeuwse and Jelle Kamps. Let's take a look at those 3 Belgians then. They were in contention for a podium place relatively long, but they weren't only fighting for a podium place, they were also fighting for a place in the Belgian selection for the World Championships in Oostende in 2 weeks' time. There's 2 places left, we think, besides the obvious riders that we expect to go, and these 3 guys are definitely fighting for those 2 places. Perhaps someone like Tim Merlier could be in the mix as well, but I think this was an important race, and for Adams to come out on top here, I think it does give him potentially that 0.1 extra at the bondscoach.
Yeah, indeed. I think in the beginning of the race, it seemed a little bit that Daan Soete was going to be the best of those 3. There was nothing that showed that it couldn't be going his way. But he struggled a little bit with the pace that he was doing at the beginning of the race. Kind of blew up, and yeah, Van der Haar and David van der Poel obviously came by and left him behind. But it was also Adams who left him behind, and I think that was unnecessary for Soete. I really think that Soete, if he managed that race a little bit better, should have been the one on top. But fair play to Adams. This might actually be a very important result for him. But I think out of the 3, for me personally, despite the fact that they also are, the first 2, I think that Adams and Soete really were very good in this race.
Yeah, I think Daan Soete, his start was a bit too furious. He definitely lit it up and blew up. That's eventually a short summary of his race. But let's actually talk a bit more about that selection, because there's potentially 9 places there, because we expect Van Aert to win the World Cup next week in Overijse. So let's say they do have 9 places. There's 5 riders that we are pretty confident of saying that they are going to get that selection. Those are Van Aert, who will then be invited as winner of the World Cup. Iserbyt, who will be invited because he's European champion. Then we have the likes of Van Toornout, Laurens Sweeck and Toon Aerts. Then we also expect Gianni Vermeers and Quinten Hermans to be in the selection, but we could say that with like 75% of certainty.
Yeah, I expect them definitely in the selection because of their experience as well as their performance. They have not been very consistent in all the races, but especially for Hermans, that would have been an obvious choice. And I think Vermeers really showed in the last few weeks that he is also really a guy that should go to the World Championships.
And then for those last 2 places, assuming Van Aert wins the World Cup, we already mentioned Adams, Soete and Sweeck, and then we could potentially put Tim Merlier next to that. I mean, I don't expect someone like Tom Meeuwse or Vincent Baastans to get those places. But out of these 2 guys, I mean, Adams and Soete, they get the result here. But Merlier, he has the experience. What do you think? Who will be the one to be selected by Sven van Toornout?
Depending, if we're going to purely look on the results, I would definitely go for Soete and Jens Adams. But in the Belgian championships, I saw a very strong Tim Merlier. I think everybody was a little bit surprised with that result. In my opinion, I was very surprised with that. And he really showed good shape there. In terms of experience, I would say that Merlier, of course, also very good friends with Van Aert, can be very good support even outside of the race. That's going to be a tough decision to make. Do you really want to go for guys which are going to perform well, or do we also want to create a very good atmosphere around in the team and try to have no issues, make Van Aert comfortable before the race? I mean, those things are also very important.
I certainly think that Daan Soete is the guy who will take that 8th place. I think he's consistently throughout the season been on the back end of the top 10, where he usually finishes somewhere around 8th, 9th, 10th. These 2 other guys, I mean, Sweeck and Merlier, they're usually just outside of the top 10, 11, 12. And Jens Adams, of course, he hasn't ridden a lot of races, and I think that's what eventually will cost Jens Adams the selection. I think he just hasn't ridden enough races in the Belgian Championship. He also was unlucky, and that way he hasn't really had the chance to prove himself to Sven van Toornout. I'm sure Sven van Toornout knows Jens Adams is a hard worker, but I think that this year Jens Adams won't be riding the World Championships, and then the 8th place, as I said, to Soete, and then the 9th. It could go either way, but I expect that eventually to go to Tim Merlier because of the reputation he has.
Yeah, I think so too, and that's also really true. That the fact that Adams really, he joined in January for with the first few races. He didn't do the whole season, and those lack of competition is probably going to play a big role in the decision of the one that is going to be made by Sven van Toornhout.
In the women's race, we saw a different race than in the men's race. We saw that it was Betsema with the fastest start. She was joined in the lead by Brand and Bakker for quite some while. It was then Bakker who was the first to make a mistake and get dropped. And from the background, we saw Marianne Vos on the rise. She kept on closing the gap to the first three until with 2 laps to go, she was 9 seconds behind only. She came from 29 seconds behind. She crashed in the downhill with some sand, and that was her chances of joining the 2 leaders gone. In the last lap, we had then Brand and Betsema who were fighting it out for the win. Brand was in the lead. She put Betsema under pressure, but Betsema looked to be able to follow until the last running section, because it was Brand who got on her bike first after she was, after all, in the lead. And she put down the power, and that was enough for her to take the win in front of Betsema. And then in the end, it was Vos who still ended third. Well, really, that last lap, that is the most important thing here of this race. For the rest, Betsema and Brand look to be pretty closely matched in terms of performance. I would say Betsema had the slight overhand in the sand, and Betsema had the slight overhand in the sand and Brand on the flats, the hilly parts. Do you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that it's a tendency that's going on through the season already, that we have seen that Brand is really the strongest out of the two. But Betsema, in terms of technique and the way of riding the sand, she knows, of course, how she needs to do that. And I guess that technique really helped her today. But the power of Brand is a danger. And I have to say that she surprised me a little bit today in the sand, though. She was really picking the good paths. She was really not losing that much in the sand, and she did a quite good job and surprised me a lot. And in my opinion, she showed that for the World Championships, that sand is not going to be that much of an issue for her, maybe.
I definitely think this says something towards the World Championships. I think Betsema's the strongest in the sand. We've seen this before as well, that she's really strong in the sand. But at the same time, you can see it in the last lap, I think Betsema misses a bit of killer instinct. And I'll go into this a bit more in depth when we take a look in the preview of the World Championships next week. But I think you could see it today here as well. In the last lap, Brand was the one leading the entire lap, and if you're like Betsema, you're the best in these sandy sections, you should go into those sections in the lead, because now if Brand makes a mistake, you can't get past. And now, if you are faster than Brand, you first need to pull alongside Brand, and then you need to go out of the perfect trail, and I think that's what maybe costed Betsema the win. I'm not too sure. Brand did look strong, but I definitely think that would have played into the advantage of Betsema if she had done that.
It's kind of a golden rule going into the last lap. You have to be in the lead. It's not like the sprinting where you want to be most of the time behind the guy to surprise the other opponent. You want to be in the lead because you can decide what you're gonna do in that corner. And I think Betsema should have been in the front, especially in the sand section where you are stronger. But in the interview at the end of the race, she complained a little bit about her legs. She said that she had a very hard training session before this race, that this week was very with a lot of high intensity in terms of training. Maybe she didn't feel well and she didn't have the confidence to do so, but definitely in the World Championships she needs to take a little bit more initiative and show a little bit of that killer instinct to be in contention for a win.
Then the rider in third, Marianne Vos, she didn't have a great start. She was quite far behind. She was in a group with Pieterse, for instance, and I thought, it's again not the best here for Vos. She had, of course, that strong start in Essen, but then after that the results were a bit worse. 6th in Herentals, I mean, that's still okay, but 14th in Dendermonde and 11th in Hulst. Not the best results, but she proved me wrong here today to ride fourth. 9 seconds behind only. I think Vos is definitely one that could potentially get a top 5 at the World Championships, that's for sure. And she says herself she's targeting a medal. I mean, it's ambitious, that's how we know Vos. But on the other hand, Before that crash, he was 9 seconds behind, and I think it definitely shows that on parcourses like this, Vos is still someone to reckon with.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with her return in Essen, she won that race. Of course, I was kind of hopeful that she would join the youth that we have now, and also Brand. But she kind of struggled a little bit in the following races. Not really what I expected from her, but she's really relaxed. Also, before this race, she was very happy about her shape. I was, I have to say, also surprised with her performance today. It was really good. She showed that a top 5 in a world championship would definitely not be impossible, and they have to watch out because she's going there with no pressure. She's already have been many times world champion before, I think 7 times. So I wouldn't mess with her going into that world championship, and she would definitely be the underdog.
Definitely, and don't forget Vos, if she is close to the win, she can give 120% to get that win, and that's what makes Vos very dangerous, because in the last lap, Vos is always on fire.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's run down the entire top 10 then. A lot of Dutch riders, Brand, Betsema and Vos. Then we saw another 3 Dutch riders, Bakker, Kastelein and Pietersen. Then Verdonschot and Honsinger. And then we see Van Alphen and Van Empel to round off the top 10. About these riders, Bakker and Pietersen, they rode solid races here. And I think that these 2 riders are definitely the 2 riders who will challenge Vos the most at the World Championships.
Yeah, I mean, Bakker had a very, very, very strong start. And I think that Pietersen also really had a good race. You saw actually like a few moments where she really showed that power that she has. Both girls actually, very good performance from both. And I think Vos is really going to really needs to be very good to beat these both women in the championship.
And then another rider that we should definitely keep an eye on out at those under 23 World Championships is Amandine Foucounet, the brand new French champion. We already mentioned her in the podcast of Troyes, where she got 3rd. Today she gets 12th in Mol, and you might think, 12th, but 12th, it's much better than the results she had before, because before she was always outside of the top 20, 28th in Tabor, 21st in Boom, and those were the type of results that she were getting, and I think she definitely made a step between Namur and the French Championship.
Yeah, definitely. And before the race, we knew that she was going to ride this race, and it was kind of interesting to see how she's going to, be doing with all these other women in this race. And I think she kind of did a good result. She was actually also having a good start, going with respectively with, I think, with Hongsinger she was in a while following her. Then she dropped back a little bit, but in the end, still an all right result for someone that is more used to French to the racing in the French environment. So definitely, I think a good performance from her, and we are getting closer and closer to those World Championships. So for her, that top 10 would definitely be a goal for her.
Well, then I think we've covered it for the Zilvermeercross and Mol. A shame that some of the big guys weren't there, but we'll see them in action next week. Next weekend is a double race weekend with the X2O Trophy in Hamme and the World Cup final in Overijse. But before that, on Wednesday, we have a podcast going up with Canadian champion cyclocross Michael van der Ham, and I hope you guys will tune in to listen to that. Issam, thank you for talking with me about the Zilvermeercross and Mol.
Yes, thank you for hosting, man.
And then, as I said, on Wednesday, there's a podcast with Michael van der Ham going up. And on Friday, we will have a preview podcast going up for the World Cup final in Overijse. Will Van Aert win the World Cup? We will hear it there. And of course, podcasts for that are coming up. Thanks everyone for listening, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.